Hey there, Star Stuffs! I am your host and artist, Ash Archambault of the Creator Being Podcast. Welcome here to this space where you will be reminded that you are a masterpiece in progress because your life is a work of art. You're going to be reminded that you are a living legacy and have everything in this now moment to create the life you want to experience. Right here during this show, we are going to go into practices, and I'm going to guide you to help you guide yourselves into greater experiences of personal freedom and connection to the creative force of the universe. We're going to practice trust falling with ourselves and the universe, and it's in this beautiful space that we can honor our humanness, our uniqueness, our connectivity to all other beings, and to the loving, infinite, divine universe that is here for us. So join me, Star Stuffs, on the Creator Being Podcast. Let's go. Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good. Had to start off this podcast, Sex, Your Seed of Creation, with a song about freedom from way deep down. Nina Simone, you knockout artist, thank you so much for this song. And Star Stuffs, I wanted to share with you the rest of the lyrics to this song. I think it's really going to set the stage for today. Fish in the sea, you know how I feel. River running free, you know how I feel. Blossom on the tree, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn. It's a new day, it's a new life for me, and I'm feeling good. Dragonfly out in the sun, you know what I mean, don't you know? Butterflies all having fun, you know what I mean. Sleep in peace when day is done, that's what I mean. And this old world is a new world and a bold world for me. Yeah. Stars, when you shine, you know how I feel. Scent of the pine, you know how I feel. Oh, freedom is mine, and I know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me, and I am feeling good. So I know the topic of sex always perks people's interest, and there's a lot of contradictory culture surrounding sex. But what I want to focus on today is more about the self-mastery and the reverence and the honoring of creative force, and a form of that is sexual energy. Because contrary to Tinder, the media, most patriarchal systems we know, your sex is in fact sacred. Your sex and how you experience it is yours, and it's sacred. I chose that song not because it's about sex, you guys. It's a beautiful song about freedom. I chose that song because that song feels like a beautiful opening to life. It feels like all of these different ways which we can identify in nature. It's a feeling of opening into our own freedom. And that is so much about what sexual energy can do for us. What the force of creation does, it's an opening into something new. In my humble opinion, there are really two things that both our religious and educational institutions should be offering us. Ideals of truth and love, and then methods or ways in which we can practice and attain more of that truth and love. To me, that would be the greatest gift to our society. When I was spending time creating Healthy Minds, Healthy Bodies kids programs, there was the teen program. And I completed it, this whole digital year-long program. It was like such a tremendous, tremendous project that I worked on for years. And I finished it right before COVID hit, actually. And one of the most interesting parts about creating a program for teens was actually touching upon the subject of sex. And here's why. Because by and large, there is such useless information out there regarding sex, but it's accepted as enough by our society and by our educational institutions. And the centermost point I felt deeply guided to share with teens about sex was about the realization that their bodies and this experience of sex and wanting sex was, and their own sexual energy was something that they could learn to work with, to observe through keen awareness and with a sincere curiosity. But more than that, for them to know that this energy is so powerful and requires consideration and reverence. You know, having this experience in our human bodies, our hormones rage. There's a massive porn epidemic, and it's available to people anytime, anywhere. Sex sells everything, and there's this pervasive Tinder culture of fucking in bathroom stalls. And holy shit, what's an adult brain supposed to do with all of this, let alone a teen brain? I don't necessarily have the answer for you, but I think a lot of it does lie in education. And I really, really loved this little concept that I heard about from Kayla Betts and Alyssa Stephenson on their podcast. And Kayla talked about how we often treat sex in our society as a slushie you can get at the gas station, as opposed to the gorgeous apple that's grown in nature and ripened on a mature tree that has roots reaching down deep into the earth. And I thought that was such a simple and profound way of introducing a deeper reverence and honoring of what sex can be for all of us. So I'm here to just take that concept, and we're going to make an extended metaphor here about apples and slushies. And I'm going to speak from personal experience because I have been the apple and I have definitely been the slushie and everything in between. So I never actually wanted to have sex when I was in high school. I wanted to do everything else, but there was something inside me that stopped me. And when I got to college, then it was like all bets are off. And I had my first serious boyfriend, and like that was when I took the plunge. And you know, when I was in college, I used to watch marathons of Sex and the City with my roommates. And you know, the example there was that sex was extremely casual. You could have multiple partners, and it was all about doing whatever it is that you wanted to do. And it was all about female empowerment, genuine self exploration. And I totally bought into that story. And in my early 20s, I lived like that.
Fun fact, I was in a female burlesque troupe, a dance troupe, which was unbelievably fun. I did stand-up comedy. I did Shakespeare. I did all of these things that made me feel very connected to my sexual, sensual, free self. Basically, I made a vow to myself in my 20s that I would do anything and everything that scared me.
I lived in LA and there were plenty of partners, and I didn't really feel very much emotionally during sex. Looking back on it, it was almost like a game to me, a very forgettable game. And later on, I would understand why I felt that way. But we'll get there, friends, okay? I'm just taking you down a little trip of memory lane here. So then I got a serious boyfriend at age 23. We moved in together, and I got pregnant at age 24, which was a total shock to me because I was supposed to be infertile. I was a childhood cancer patient. Ages 12 to 13, I had chemo and radiation in my pelvis. I had a localized tumor in my sacrum. It's called Ewing's sarcoma, a rare type of childhood bone cancer. And I had had all my treatment, and I'd only ever had one natural period in my entire life. And after all my treatment, when I was 14, I had to start hormone replacement therapy because I was having hot flashes when I was sitting in my classes in high school. And, I never liked taking synthetic hormones. It never felt really good. So at age 21, I went on this whole holistic health journey, changing my diet and patterns. And my period came back naturally within a year. But I still had the story in my mind of when I was 12 and 13, doctors were like, you're never going to be able to have kids. You're infertile. You've had pelvic radiation. And honestly, I just took that as an excuse to have unprotected sex with my boyfriend at the time. When I found out that I was pregnant, I cried. I wasn't happy at all. I knew I was not in the position to have a baby. And I got an abortion at a Planned Parenthood in LA. My relationship with my boyfriend fell apart in a matter of months after that. I went to my childhood cancer specialist in LA and I told my physician about it, and they stayed completely silent, didn't really even give me eye contact. They had no words for me. And I didn't really know it, but I was in a state of shock for a number of weeks. And I would cry out of nowhere, and I'd have to sit on my couch for an hour or two just not moving. But to anyone I knew at the time, I just played it all off. I really did. But it was shortly after this, probably 6 months later, I met a man named John who would become my teacher and who would kickstart an explosive spiritual journey for me. On a whim, I went to a workshop that actually my boyfriend's friend was going to at the time. And after I sat in this room and just kind of connected to my body and sat and listened to this man speak, I felt like 10 pounds lighter afterward. And then I came back to the next class. And in that class, I started feeling energy for the first time in my life, truly experiencing energy. It was like, I didn't know what to call it at the time, but I guess life force just felt like it was ripping through me. I came back again to another class. And this time I felt energy, but I felt a very loving, peaceful energy completely take over my body. But that didn't last. The days that followed were very, very deeply physically intense for me. And I can only describe it as something that felt like something physically was being birthed through me. I know, strange. I had hours at a time where I was breathing hard and pushing what felt like this energy through my body. I thought I was going nuts. I really did. And I couldn't really talk about it with many people. Then one day, after nearly a year of deep diving into spiritual practice, I had a very distinct experience that I haven't shared with more than 3 people until now. I was actively atoning for my abortion. It just felt like the thing that my heart wanted to do. And when I did, I could feel like a movie, like scenes almost playing in my entire body. And I could feel how deeply sad and pained it made God and the universal mother or the universe itself feel having lost this life. It was profound. And then I felt a tremendous amount of love wash over me. And this love helped me move through pain and tears that came up for me. And I could feel like my heart was held. And I could feel the extension of forgiveness in my body. And in that moment, I was taught the greatest lesson about free will. Free will is a sacred gift. And it's given to us so our human selves have the freedom to learn and discern. Without freedom of choice, we don't learn the lessons our heart is yearning to know and experience for itself. This is the first time in my life I thanked God with deep, deep, deep gratitude and tears running down my face. This is the first time I deeply experienced that in my life. I felt the spirit of my unborn child that day, and I blessed it, and I offered it to the divine, and I said my most heartfelt of sorries. And for the next 6 years, I was completely celibate. And I moved out of LA, and I moved and lived with my teacher and took care of he and his partner and basically lived like a modern monk. I did practice, I read books, I went into deep meditation and deep self-healing practices. I would go out into the world only for necessities or opportunities to continue learning or teaching. And for 5 years out of those 6, I didn't even explore my sexual self at all. At all. I completely shut it off and down. And I didn't treat it as evil, but I treated it as something that was completely unnecessary. And during this time, I learned so much and was shown so much based upon my sincere asking and my sincere prayer. And I experienced so much spiritually and developed such a relationship with the divine. And at times it felt like I was being forged in this painful fire. And then other times it was like I was forged in this fire, but there was like an exquisite pleasure in it, and it surpassed any bodily pleasure that I experienced. It was surreal. And again, I couldn't talk to many people about this, and my parents thought I was nuts. I mean, my mom was still there. They thought that I had just like gone off the deep end. Totally. Which by any modern standards, I kind of did. But in the best way, quite honestly. And then everything changed again. I met a man who was living in my mom's basement. Hand delivered by the universe, guys. It was funny. He was an exchange student named Eduardo. And he was like chosen family to my mom and my sister back home in Ohio. And I came home for Christmas and I met Eduardo, and he was deeply interested in the self-help practices I had learned and was teaching at the time. And he just kind of wouldn't leave me alone about things. He kept calling me and wanted to do practices. And I was like, okay, he's really open. He's really interested. And then he decided to meet me at this conference for children's mental health to support me. And I had brought Healthy Minds, Healthy Bodies there. And something spectacular happened to me again. Another tower moment, as you could say. When I was with Eduardo for those couple of days, and I was sitting next to him, and I remember it was on the fourth day we were together, I felt myself expand to the universe like I never had before in my life. And I had been sitting there doing hours and hours and hours of practice and silent meditations and prayer for 5 years. And when I sat next to Eduardo, it felt like the drawing of Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man. You know, like the man and like I just like the, I don't know. I'm using that image, and it felt like he was a Vitruvian man and I was a Vitruvian woman, and it's like our bodies just swirled and became one, and I could feel him completely in my own body, head to toe. And wherever he went after that for a number of months, it was like I could just feel him in my body anytime during the day. It was like I could just check in with him. Wild. Absolutely wild. But back to that moment, which was in Minnesota, in Duluth, of all places. I heard in that moment, you have learned truth, and now this man is going to teach you about love. And again, I had this moment, this deep, deep sense of gratitude, and I was just tears streaming down my face. It's the second time it happened to me that profoundly and that deeply in my life. And after those couple days together, Eduardo and I knew that we had the capacity to marry each other. And 3 months later, we got married. We did our own spiritual ceremony in my mom's backyard. And leading up until that point, I never thought I would have left California. I never thought I would have left my teacher's home. I never thought I would move back to Ohio. But all of it changed like that. And what happened too, in those months while we were talking kind of long distance, my entire sexual energy came back online, which I know, duh, you're falling in love with a man, makes sense. But I, at the time, was very shocked by it because it was so organic and it wasn't something that I was trying to repress. In fact, it was just right there, and it was like ripe, and like I had to just experience it for myself. And this expansive energy that I felt in loving this man, the massive hub of the center of the earthquake of it all, was my heart, which was completely now at one and fully engaged in communicating with my sexual center in my body. Completely. Now, we waited to have sex until we were married, which granted, we got married pretty fast. And when we did, I felt this tremendous expansion again. And it was like prolonged. It was like a solid 5 minutes where I felt completely one with the universe. Oh my stars. I don't even have words for it other than that. And I was just in shock about it. And it's a beautiful shock, but I was like, whoa, what just happened to me? And then sex became completely, purely emotional for me. It was just like my heart was there, and that was sex. And then everything before it was like this slushy, right? And it was like, here was the apple, and it was exquisite. It really was. And it was like I couldn't get enough of the expression of it, of the feeling of it, of the moving through it, of the sharing of it. And I experienced for the first time this deep, deep longing of love in my body. And I didn't know why. I didn't have, words or much context about it, but I would learn later and have more context about why I felt that way. Fast forward now 3 years. I'm pregnant. And I'm about to give birth to our first daughter. And I learned he was cheating on me. I actually kicked him out because he was being so mean to me. And it was so disorienting, and I didn't understand why. But I just knew that I couldn't be around his behavior with a new baby. And so the day that I decided to kick him out, I got confirmation that he had been cheating. And then 2 weeks after my daughter was born, he told me that he had cheated on me multiple times in our young marriage. And I was completely heartbroken. I was completely rock bottom devastated. And that's just how I felt when I wasn't feeling, moments of unspeakable joy because I had this beautiful baby. But then I also had the incredible pangs of postpartum and this ferocious process of sacrificial love and becoming a mother and all of that. But I vowed during that experience at the time that I would not let all that had happened with him destroy me or my heart. I mean, I was just determined. I'm like, I'm not going to live this way. I'm going to be here and be present in my life. And when I chose that choice, bam, I was introduced to the work of Sophia Sundari, whom I have done so much more with since then in terms of her programs. And she's exquisite. She is a true, genuine guide and teacher. And I have a deep respect for her. Check out Sophia Sundari, and I'll tell you a little bit more right now. I did her online programs. I did her programs at the time, Activated Woman and Limitless Love. And they helped me heal in a way I had never before at all understood or even appreciated or knew was available to me during my spiritual exploration. Now, the basis of her teachings are tantric energetics, and her career began by teaching women about the sacred energy of their yonis, their sacred temples. And at the time, I was sexually wounded. And so I opened myself up to this kind of healing. And I experienced and learned all about our sexual energy being the seat of our creation, our personal power, and how its sacredness has never been about pushing it down or pushing it aside. It has actually been about harnessing it, moving the energy, feeling it deeply, allowing the power to pass through our bodies, our hearts, and our brains. And it is a depth that we can experience of coming closer to God, which is creation itself. And I experienced that entirely in these programs. So I did Sophia's programs, and I went and drove my car at night. My mom watched my little baby girl, and I would just scream and cry in a field by myself. And I also recorded myself frequently, saying however I was feeling at the moment, and then I would play it back to myself. And between those three things, those three major practices, and just allowing myself really to feel anything that came up for me emotionally, I moved effing mountains of pain in a matter of months. It was shocking. It was really shocking in a beautiful way. And I experienced through this process that our voices, our sense of sovereignty and our ability to create, our ability to be seen and heard and to manifest are all deeply connected to our sexual energy. I experienced the sacredness of romancing myself, holding myself, and simple pleasure from smelling flowers and lighting candles to exploring on my body what felt like safe, sweet, loving touch and what felt nourishing. And I did it all as an offering. Bam, another tower moment. I feel and I hear in my mind and my heart that Eduardo and I are going to come back together and we are going to have another child. And tears are streaming down my face. And I think, okay, God, you really are nuts. And then 6 months later, that's exactly what happened. And both of my pregnancies reminded me of the vast portal that we carry within us of holding another life. The power of creation, that we are all here because of people's sexual energy. That's how powerful it is. Pregnancy was an enormous spiritual experience for me. And the thing that astonished me the most about both my baby girls being born was that they felt exactly inside of me the same as they felt outside of me. Their energy, their beingness. Again, I wept in gratitude to God. Now, since my second daughter has been born, my marriage with Eduardo has deteriorated. After more tower moments I have had in deep communion with the divine, but that is a silver lining story for another day. Today, I want to keep going on this sharing about sex as our seat of creation and how my education through experience has continued. And I made a tidy little list for you today of some pretty specific things that I've learned that I think are really, really helpful. So I hope somebody here finds some help in this. Number 1 of the tidy little list of sacred sexual knowledge. Women, anatomically, your voice box looks remarkably like a vagina. There's a very direct correlation Mother Nature is guiding us to. Number 2, everyone's bodies are the physical extension of the Universal Mother. Hear me out. We all come from the bodies of our mothers, and our bodies are born in the bodies of our mothers, in and through the bodies of our mothers. And so if you treat your body as you would your mother, or as you would parenting your own inner child, this is when tremendous, tremendous self-worth grows and healing happens. You must honor your body, treat it with care in every single way, or otherwise you will most likely feel ill, stuck, or not expressed. This is more than just your health is everything, even though that is true as well. This is about really honoring your body in each and every day and moment, treating it well, letting it rest, giving it the nourishment it needs, allowing it to move, doing things that make it feel joyful and self-expressed. All of it. Number 3, men and women experience sexuality differently. But everyone has the responsibility and the privilege to learn to observe, harness, and direct their own sexual energy. if we are to experience the true power and inherent value and potential of our sexual energy. Number 4, not having sex with other people and exploring your own sexual energy and pleasure is definitely a flex. You're not hurting anyone by honoring and loving yourself, which brings me to the next point. Number 5, remember Liz Estrada, you guys? It's a play where the women wanted to end war, so they refused sex to their men until they stopped fighting. So ladies, there's a lesson there. Treat your vagina like the queen that she is. You get to choose who enters that sacred space. It's not about a control trip, though. It's about a self-worth trip. I realized my casual sex trip in my early 20s was a control trip for me. If you are a young person particularly, I'm talking like teens and 20s, this could be any adult, okay? But if you're a person who walks into a room with confidence and you know that there's a part of you that can feel when eyes are on you or when someone wants to fuck you, right? And you get a little ego pump about it, that's totally a biological thrill, but you're going to want to look a little deeper at that. Don't pretend you don't like it, or don't pretend that it doesn't make you feel more powerful. But if you dig a little deeper, you realize that it's more hollow than you thought. And friends, you can activate yourself. You can activate your own radiance. You can love yourself, believe in yourself, sex and please yourself as the apple that you are and not the slushy, and watch how your life changes. Number 6, if you're having casual sex, just give yourself the opportunity to ask the question to yourself, do you truly feel better or worse or unchanged after you have sex? I mean, hooking up is called hooking up for a reason. You are hooking up to somebody else's energy. You're downloading their vibrations, their programming in their most powerful center of identity. Make sure they're a device that you want to connect with and that they're not going to give you viruses, physical ones, and also, as importantly, emotional ones. Fun fact, women release chemicals when they have sex that make them fall in love with their partner. Every time they have sex. Men only release these chemicals of love only if they're in love with their partner. So sleeping with a man is not going to get him to love you, respect you, or be with you. Number 8, making love can only happen in safety. But if you do make love to someone who you find out is unsafe, just know that the love that you felt was always yours to give. And it was completely real and genuine for you. Number 9, women are inherently devotional creatures. We are. Our vaginas are portals to the creative expansion of the universe. Babies beam into that space. And in this expansive portal, there is a feeling of never loving enough. Love and creation are perpetually expanded in this portal, you guys. It's like a swirling black hole of energetic potential. And it's a beautiful, incredible thing. Honor it. Honor your longing to love deeply when it arises in you by allowing yourself to love your life first and foremost right now. Number 10, your sexual energy is the energy that creates life itself. Pretty big deal, you guys. Pretty big magic wand we all got inside of our pants. You owe it to yourself to learn about it, to learn how to harness it, work with it, and use it to make your life better. And in my humble opinion, there is nothing sexier than a man or woman who feels the kingdom of God or power of the universe between their legs, but doesn't misuse their power or control for personal gain, but for creating a true kingdom of love. And last but not least, trauma blocks us sexually. But it's the emotions of trauma that are stored in our body that are actually creating the density of this resistance. Emotions like resentment, criticism of self and others, and of course, fundamental feelings of not feeling safe, not feeling seen or heard or accepted emotionally. Now, we know we may not have had much control over the people or situations that contracted these emotions within us, but we do have the power to release them. So allow yourself time and space to move through painful emotions. Take every opportunity to treat yourself and others well, and know that sex is a place where these emotions will show up intimately for you to take a look at. Okay, well, it wouldn't be a creator being episode if we didn't do a practice. And I'm sure some of you are like, well, what are we going to practice today, Ash? Well, it's actually a very simple practice. Before we begin, I want to offer up this practice for the highest good of all of us. I do that already, mentally, for everyone here in this space, but I just wanted to say it out loud for you all right now. And we're going to begin this practice of putting our left hand on our chest, where our heart center is, and putting one hand just above our pubic bone. Okay? And all we're going to do is just simply breathe deeply into both of these spaces at once. Take like 10 breaths on your own time. And allow yourself to feel the connection, the energetic string in your body between these two places. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Now we're simply going to imagine a circle of energy starting, like a golden thread of circular energy going as we breathe in, up from our sexual center, up to our heart, and then breathing out and down from our heart, back down into our sexual center. Breathe in with me, bringing that energy up to our heart, and then breathe out, back down and up in this beautiful little golden circle and down. And keep going. Keep going until you start to feel a little bit more intensity or heat or sensation as you do this. Okay? Good, keep going. Now for women, you can add the imagery of your womb space, which is this infinite space of swirling potential for love. And for men, you can add the image of this space in your sexual center as the place of loving masculine power that can penetrate the world. Okay, keep going with this new little bit of information that we're going to add here and imagine for ourselves. Womb of creation of love, and place of power of love to penetrate the world. Good. Now we're going to bring this energy, we're going to include our beautiful brain in this energy. And we're going to bring this energy up from our sexual center and a breath in up to our brain. So it's going to pass on one side of our heart. And we're going to breathe it up into our head and let it swirl and settle in our brain. And then we're going to breathe out. And it's going to come back down the other side of our body, past the other side of our heart, back down into our sexual center. So now the circle is including our brain, up to our brain and back down again. Okay, so go ahead. Again, like a golden strand of energy circling. Breathe in. Up to our brains, our heads, and back down. Past our heart, back down into our sexual center. Keep going. And back down. And up. And back down. And up. And back down. Do it a couple more times if you feel like continuing to connect this way. Great, now we're going to drop our hands at our sides and just notice how this feels in our body. And if you'd like to, you can stick your tongue on the roof of your mouth, just in this place behind that ridge of your gums, the soft part that you start to feel on the top of on the roof of your mouth, and just keep your tongue there for a count of 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And now you can release your tongue. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to harness all this energy that we circulated. We're going to bring it back down into our sexual centers. And how we're going to do that is this. I want you to contract your muscle, your pelvic muscles, as if you were stopping your pee midstream. You're like, oh, I want to stop it. And I want you to do that 3 to 7 times, okay? And all this is going to do is just draw the energy and our attention back into our sexual center. And then all we're going to do is just take a couple breaths, normal breaths, and just notice how our body feels. When I did this practice earlier, as I was kind of creating the pieces of this episode, I felt a huge amount of swirling energy, and I kind of had to really settle in it. And now it just feels a little bit more gentle. You might feel buzzy, you might feel activated, you might feel dizzy, or you may not feel very much. It's okay. Just whatever it is that you feel in your body, you're safe in your body, you're okay, and it's welcome. This was just a simple exercise for getting acquainted with our sexual energy and how it is connected to everything else, how it can be connected with awareness consciously to the rest of the energy in our body. And you can experience a little bit now how this energy interacts with your heart and your mind. And what it feels like when they're connected and not unconsciously separated. And this is just simply when we start to gain more mastery over our own bodies and our own energy. And that's really the invitation from this entire podcast today. Each and every one of you are powerful creators, and our sexual energy is just a part of that equation, and it's something for you to explore. Thanks so much for joining me, friends, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Creator Being Podcast. So you darling human star stuffs, I want to say thank you so much for joining me here in this space. It's so incredible when we show up together, and really thank yourself for being in a place today where you opened your heart to this experience. If you liked this podcast, heck, better if you loved this podcast, go ahead and share it, spread the good. Send it to people that you think are going to like it. Like, subscribe, follow, all the things. Write the reviews. Let's spread the good. Why not? And if you want more offerings from me and practices, you can check out my website. It's ashcreatorbeing.com. And there you'll find all my juicy little portals, friends. I got writings on my Substack. I got my practice page. I teach live on this incredible platform, Vivaya Live. You can check that out as well. And you can find my other podcasts there as well. I have the Deeper Dive Creator Being podcast and Spirit Actually, which is about the undeniable truths in our life, the stories of them when we can no longer deny or dismiss that spirit is guiding us. Thank you so much for joining me here, and I will see you next time on the Creator Being podcast with Ash Archambault. Mwah! Love you guys.